there has been rumours, Stevie. You know how you like a rumour. Chris Jericho to WWE, this is from WrestleZone, this write-up, is a WWE return on the horizon for Chris Jericho when his contract with All Elite Wrestling expires later this year. It's believed it's going to expire at the end of the year or not far from the end of the year. Anyway, over the weekend, the former AEW World Champion got the wrestling world buzzing after liking a post on Instagram stating his contract with the company was up at the end of the year and that he'd be open to a WWE return depending on the situation. Now, that's not the first time he's done something like this. Do you remember when he was renegotiating with WWE, and I think he had a website at the time and he posted like a TNA logo or something at the time? So he's not...
TNA is Jericho, I think, wasn't it?
Something like that. And on the latest episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer spoke on the Chris Jericho situation. Here's the quote. Chris Jericho is actually a really big story. His AEW contract is up at the end of the year or late in the year, and there's certainly been lots and lots of talk about WWE. I know from a WWE standpoint, there is lots of talk about Jericho. People speculating Royal Rumble. Nobody has officially said anything, nor will anyone official say anything. So it remains interesting how... no, that's actually my notes. But yeah, what do you think about Jericho going over to WWE one last time? Because I sort of thought at the age he went to AEW, which would have been his late 40s, that probably would have been the last contract he'd ever sign. Maybe not.
Well, I don't think this is the way Chris wants to go out, though. And deep down, every wrestler, it's still instilled, especially from our generation, Jericho, myself, Edge, Christian... Everybody who is around that age in their 50s, you want to go back home, air quotes. You want to go back to WWE, the place where, as a kid, Jericho, Christian, Edge, everybody in my era wanted to go to what we called New York. We wanted to go to WWF, WWE, and that was the pinnacle, and that's where we thought we were going to make our names. And most of us did, and most of us are remembered for our names in WWE. So why not finish there? Is there anything more to do in AEW for him? Is there something that he can do where it's not going to be rehashed or stale? Jericho is a master politician, and he's also a master at really being aware when things are going stale and how to stay relevant and fresh. Whether people think he's just trying to kind of milk off the young talent and not get them over or do whatever, he definitely can make an impact. My question is, with TKO taking over WWE and now Logan Paul and the Travis Scotts and the Jelly Rolls and whoever else is down the pipeline of celebrities, will Jericho have a harder time fitting in, or will Jericho more accurately get lost in the shuffle more in WWE than AEW? It's kind of a trick question at this point. Or are we going to see Jericho versus Logan Paul? Jericho versus Jelly Roll? Is Jericho going to be the celebrity versus wrestler type thing where he's the special attraction? I can see him doing that.
I find it interesting how Chris Jericho is probably the most hated person in AEW from the fans' perspective, because, when AEW became a thing in 2019, or, a weekly thing in 2019, he was the main name. He was the guy who legitimized that company to a point, more than the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, because Cody Rhodes was nowhere near as big of a star then than he is now. He was the first champion. And then to go from that to, a few years later, and then he's the guy who's, known as either holding down talent or, he doesn't have it anymore. And, obviously, you're not going to be the same wrestler you were 20 years earlier. I get that. And he's 54 years old now. And you could also argue a couple of those groups, like the Inner Circle and the Jericho Appreciation Society didn't make any stars at all. But, I mean, for the most part, I always thought that Jericho was a huge boon to AEW. So I don't understand how he's all of a sudden become the most hated guy to that fan base.
Well, number one, familiarity breeds contempt. He's been there so long, and that's the weird part about wrestling. Sometimes you're always going to be more beloved, or you got to go away for a while to come back to be loved again. I believe in a weird way, somehow there was a transference after Cody left, because he was basically the most hated person in WWE or AEW for a bit. And after that, it seemed like they focused all that hate on Jericho. I mean, there was some here and there, But it really seems like AEW fans need that one scapegoat, that one person, not the gimmick with Jack Perry, but the one person that they need to blame for holding whatever underneath younger talent back. Do you know? Because eventually, you know what they're going to do? They're going to turn on the Hurt Syndicate because they're holding the young talent down.
Mm.
But they're already healed, so it's okay.
Yeah.
And Jericho actually tried to turn that negative into a positive, but it seemed like it turned into go away heat, didn't it? Like not the heat where you want to see him get beat up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, then it turned into, people chanting, just retire or please retire. I think, like during a match with Hook, people were chanting that. And then from there, it became the learning tree where he became like the overbearing, I was going to say almost Diamond Dallas Page, hi guys, like being overly enthusiastic kind of thing. Not in the same vein at all.
He was actually doing Tex Kwando from Napoleon Dynamite. Bow to your sensei. He was under the learning. I was just trying to get the references in Napoleon Dynamite.
He's not been on TV since April, which is interesting.
Really?
It coincided his leaving AEW. He sort of disbanded the Learning Tree group, and he's not been on TV, I think, since April. Coincided with a Fozzy tour, but also it seems that he's lost an awful lot of weight recently because the last couple of years Jericho was way too heavy, and all of a sudden he's lost a lot of weight, and I also thought maybe that's another thing to consider, that he might want to go back to WWE, wants to look his best, maybe a bit fatigued with AEW, didn't take care of himself as well, but now there's a new opportunity on the horizon, and you've got all this free time now. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is that you don't know. When I watched it, I saw Chris had gained weight and stuff, and it was a lot like in the midsection. So my automatic, and I know from experience, like right this second, when you have a lower back injury and your lower back is shot or flares up, your core weakens. You can't. They're directly with each other. So he can't train his core. He can't train his back. Maybe he can't train at all. Things happen. Look, I got the TENS unit on right now, just trying to sit down and get through the show. I understand that because there was something more to it than just saying he's lazy and he doesn't want to work out and he's getting fat. I assumed injury that he was trying to hide, and I was assuming lower back injury since it seemed like the core area. Because above that, he was pretty, obviously you're in your 50s, just like myself and Paul Levesque and Chris. It's harder to retain and gain muscle. And obviously traveling with wrestling, traveling with Fozzy, the schedule Jericho is under with both of those, it's going to wear you down. You combine all that. So maybe he just needed the time off, ability to train, home-cooked meal. Maybe he got a chef. Maybe he got meal delivery services. Now he's able to be structured in a routine, and that weight is naturally coming off. And coupled with the fact that WWE is still a body company, a physique-driven company, an eye test company, sure, you want to look your best.
Do you see Jericho moving over, jumping back to WWE? Do you see it being just playing one company off the other so he gets a better deal?
He's going to get that. I think at this point for Jericho, he's made millions upon millions. Unless that offer is like another 10 years and you're paid and you get to be office or you have an opportunity for more mainstream stuff. I don't know what it would take. What would be in that contract besides just money? But Jericho, Edge, Christian, a lot of Canadian wrestlers, Brett, they take pride and substance over the money. So I think Jericho at this point, and he's not gonna get 75 a year in WWE. So he's gonna get a big guarantee from TKO and also a limited amount of dates. And if he's promised a storyline, an angle, and a match with Logan Paul, with Jelly Roll, with whoever else is a celebrity, he has some cool stuff to do. And if he can end his career, maybe he ends his career wrestling Roman Reigns one last time, or Cody Rhodes for the title, or a retirement match there. I think Jericho, if the timing is right, Rumble, surprise return, leading to WrestleMania, and having a WrestleMania match that might be his last, or he might have one more year after that. I think Chris is going back to WWE without the offer you can't refuse. Anything short of that, I believe he's going back to WWE.
So, that being said, I think Kevin Owens would make the most sense for a final match, because then, it'd be like nearly 10 years since the Festival of Friendship, and that was more or less the last thing he did in WWE. So it'd be good to circle back to that, and that's presuming Kevin Owens can come back with his neck injury.
It would actually be pretty, if he's healthy, pretty awesome if Jericho inserts him, if they continue the Kevin Owens-Cody thing when Kevin comes back. And Jericho is kind of the person maybe instigating it and being the you-know-what star with that. That would be a good thing. But I still think Cody, he'd want to shoot for the stars. He'd want to go no less than somebody like a Brock, a Rock, a Cody, something like that.